Jalisco!
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Hello, my name is Peter Sanchez, and that was one of the more beautiful songs of Mariachi, a song we're all very familiar with, La Negra. This version of the song is famously performed by Mariachi Vargas, and it is highly recognizable. It's, in my opinion, on par with some of the more recognizable songs that we all know in our pop culture. I particularly like this song because its complexity and beauty. The song calls for a full participation of all the instruments in a mariachi ensemble. You've got violins, harp, vihuela, guitar, guitarrón, as well as trumpets. So it displays the full breadth and magnificence of a true mariachi ensemble. It's an orchestra, a Mexican symphony. Today I would like to share with you the story of Norberto Frescas and how the city of Albuquerque came to be home to this wonderful music and home to Mariachi Spectacular, a cultural series of events today so well known we even have our own registered trademark. But I want to start with Mariachi Spectacular and then circle back to its creator. Today, Mariachi Spectacular is arguably the premier music conference and concert series of its type in our country. Larger even than similar events held in bigger cities like Los Angeles, San Antonio, Chicago, Las Vegas, Nevada, and many, many others. Literally tens of thousands of people participate and enjoy the series of events conducted right here in Albuquerque each year during an extraordinary summer week here in July, today. Mariachi Spectacular draws global talent and enthusiasts, putting New Mexicans and Albuquerque in contact with some of the world's best mariachi artists. Each year, Mariachi Spectacular attracts the world's top professional talent to our spectacular concert at Sandia Resort and Casino. But we also attract to our conference 30 to 40, sometimes 50 amateur groups, which maybe approximately 10 of those are from our own home state of New Mexico, homegrown. In our conference, the majority of master teachers, the maestros, are brought here to teach music, mostly not from New Mexico, usually from around the United States and Mexico. They are considered the best type of maestros in our country and around Mexico that we can find. That is one of the commitments that we have here. It's really interesting in this genre of music. There's a very unique humility that exists amongst the iconic members of this genre. In our conferences, maestros are the most distinguished musicians, but they're willing to travel to Albuquerque to teach and share their technical skills, their cultural style of the music, and the music's history. And for context, let me translate that into the rock and roll genre. What you have here in Mariachi Spectacular is the equivalent of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards teaching voice and guitar. People like Stephen Carrillo from Mariachi Cobre, Jose Hernandez, Sol de Mexico. Each of these individuals are at the pinnacle of their professions in the mariachi music genre. Their involvement in our conference, and many others like them, provides a truly unique and extraordinary musical educational experience for you, our youth. Effectively, we get to pass down the music and its beauty from one generation to the next because of the humility that exists within these very successful mariachi musicians. So yes, Mariachi Spectacular is about concerts and the music, but it's so much more. Most importantly, and what separates Albuquerque's event from the others, is the attention that we take to finding those maestros, to the quality of instruction in this classroom that we offer to you. Nowhere in the United States can one find a stronger educational experience than that which is produced each year here in Albuquerque by Mariachi Spectacular. So how did all this begin? How did we get here? Well, it begins with a person who didn't play an instrument, and she could barely even carry a tune. Her words, not mine. But this person, Noberta Frescas, had a dream, and nothing was going to stop her. She loved mariachi music. She really loved it. Noberta fell for mariachi as a young girl growing up in Deming, New Mexico, because each night her family had a ritual of gathering around the dinner table to eat together and to listen on their local radio station, an AM segment that played for an hour and a half each night, Mexican rancheras and mariachi music. So these songs were a huge part of how she and her family connected to each other and to their own culture, their heritage. She was so taken by the music that she would hurry home each day from school because you see, the mailman, he was actually the DJ for this segment of music each night on the radio. And Noberta was there to meet him at the mailbox so she could make some recommendations about tonight's playlist. Early signs of a producer were already surfacing. These moments were treasured memories for young Noberta. They were also foundational to Noberta's development. In the year 1961, Noberta graduated from high school in Deming and set off to live here in Albuquerque to attend the University of New Mexico, and her ambition, her goal, was to become an early childhood education teacher. And as time passed, and she was working on her studies, she remained focused, yes, on her studies, but this music thing kept tugging at her. And when the tugging wouldn't stop, Noberta, she put her studies aside and she followed her heart. Her journey into the music business had begun. Her first endeavor was with the Albuquerque chapter of the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC. The local LULAC chapter was trying to raise money to provide college scholarships for Latino students. The cause was very near and dear to Noberta's heart. So she joined the effort, and her job was to put on a mariachi concert to raise money. Now, Noberta knew nothing about booking performers, renting venues, publicizing events, but she was a quick study, and she dove into the entertainment world and learned all that she could. She found promoting and producing music concerts to be very exciting, and she was good at it. After staging local fundraisers, she kept pushing forward, and it led her to more significant type of shows, national shows for the U.S. Postal Service, national LULAC conventions, the National Guard Convention, Chambers of Commerce conventions. More and more people were seeking her out. For years, Noberta here in New Mexico was the state fair producer and promoter of Hispanic heritage concerts at Tingley Coliseum. As a matter of fact, if you ever went to a Spanish language concert at Tingley Coliseum during state fair time, chances are Noberta was the producer of that show. She was having a blast. Noberta became a big-time promoter of events here in New Mexico, but also she became an even bigger promoter of events around the country here in the United States. organizing concerts and performances for everyone who was someone in the Spanish music market. For over 25 years, Norberta rose from a small-time promoter of local New Mexico artists like Roberto Grego to a big-time promoter of international artists like Yolanda del Rio, Vicky Carr, Mariachi Vargas, Pepe Martinez, Flor Silvestre, Vicente Fernandez, Lola Beltran, Juan Gabriel, and so many, many more. In many ways, Norberta became the gateway for Mexican music performers who very much wanted to penetrate the US market with their music. It was good business for everyone, but it was also a great cultural exchange connecting Mexico and the US through music, a music that we both loved. Along the way, Norberta got to know them all, and they loved her for what she was doing. She was expanding the reach and developing further the interest in Spanish language music, in mariachi music. It was their music. It was her music. It was our music. Through the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, Norberta became so well known, it was not unusual for her to regularly visit and talk on the phone with these music icons. Yeah, it was business, but it was also friendship. In those days, as a matter of fact, Norberta would tell you the story. You did not book a gig the way you do today, where you get on a website, you find the artist's agent, and then you work through that go-between situation. In their day, you actually called the artist at their home. On their phone, you worked out details for the business dealings that you had, but you're also talking to them about their families and about their lives, what's going on with their world. So she had a chance to really build strong relationships here and friendships with all these artists. They trusted her and they loved her, and her Rolodex became extensive. And when I look out in the crowd here today, I can see that most of you probably don't know what a Rolodex is, but it's your contact list. You know, she had an extensive contact list. And it takes quite an unusual person to build themselves into this type of promoter. It takes patience, care, and love for the human beings that you're dealing with. On the one hand, you're in awe of their celebrity and their talent and their musical gifts. But on the other hand, they're music royalty. And with that comes some eccentricities. You know, at times they're a little self-absorbed. They make odd demands, and they have high expectations. But to know Norberta is to know how advanced her social skills were, her emotional intelligence, and her patience. All of these things are very vital to these kind of relationships. She found a way to straddle the spaces necessary to work effectively in this world of music kings and queens. So I'm going to tell you a little story that kind of encapsulates the essence of that oddness and that challenge for her. One year at State Fair, Norberta had Lola Beltran as the headliner. Now, Juan Gabriel, another friend of Norberta's, who is also a very good friend of Lola Beltran, he said to Norberta, if you ever have her in Albuquerque, call me. I'd love to come down to the show. Norberta remembers this, so she makes a phone call that afternoon. She says, Juan, Lola's going to perform tonight. You wanted me to tell you that. And he goes, thank you. I'll be there. So, you know, he's a wealthy man. He has probably an access to a private jet, and within a few hours, he's in Albuquerque, and he's ready to see the concert. She puts him right up front in the front row, and he gets to enjoy watching his real good friend, Lola Beltran, perform that evening. He was very happy. After the show, he comes backstage, and he and Lola are catching up, and Juan says, you know, I have a wonderful ranch, hacienda outside of Santa Fe. Why don't you come and spend a few days with me? And Lola said, yeah, I can do that. So then Juan turns to Norberto and says, hey, we're going to hang out for a few days. Can I borrow your car? And she's like, well, she didn't want to upset him, or she certainly wanted to accommodate him. So she turned to Dr. Rupert Trujillo, who was her partner in crime at the time, and she says, hey, we need a car. And so he gives up his keys to his car, and we give them to Juan Gabriel, and the two of them set out to Santa Fe. Okay? 2 days pass by, 3 days pass by, 4 days pass by, and finally Norberto's like, hey, I got to call this guy and get my car back. So she calls up Juan, and he goes, oh, yes, yeah, I don't need your car anymore. You can come and get it. Okay. But I don't know where you live. And it's in this remote place, you know. It's his, like, weekend retreat. So he says, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a chair, and I'm going to lean it up against my mailbox. And that's how you're going to know that's my house. So there goes Norberta setting out to go retrieve this car. And she's driving on these private roads outside of Santa Fe looking for this hidden, well-hidden home. And there she comes across on the road a chair leaning against a mailbox. So she's like, this must be the place. She takes a right turn, goes down the road, gets to this very beautiful home, gets out, knocks on the door, and it's Juan Gabriel. She's at the right place. Now, at this particular moment, Juan can say a number of things. Thank you for inviting me to your concert. Thank you for lending me your car. Thank you for retrieving the car. But he looks at Norberta and he says, where's my chair? So Norberta has to turn around and go get in her car and go back and get his chair, bring it to him. Now, he's not a bad guy. I'm not trying to make him sound like he's a bad guy. He's a music star, you know. This is just his style. And Norberta knew that. And she was fine with that. She wasn't mad at him. It was just another day at the office for her. But it kind of demonstrates the type of people that she was working with and how she had to survive in that world. But she did survive, and as a matter of fact, she flourished. So now let me get back to time here. As we approach the 90s, you know, Norberta's been a promoter now for 3 decades. There's a change in the air during this moment. The year is 1990. Norberta happens to run into a man who she knows very well, a good friend, at Garcia's Mexican Kitchen here on Central. She runs into Dr. Rupert Trujillo, who was also the Dean of Continuing Education at UNM. They visited, and she shared with him a new idea she had been thinking about. The idea of a mariachi music education conference, and maybe even couple it with some concerts. And Dr. Trujillo loved this idea. The two of them began to hatch a plan to create this. Dr. Trujillo would be able to bring the strength of UNM and its resources, including funding and facilities. And Norberta, well, her talents as a concert producer and all her music industry contacts, this is what was going to be needed to do this. And as an important sort of side note and relevant side note at this moment, there's a trend emerging in our country. You might say a cultural movement is in motion. Interest in mariachi is on the rise. If you recall, in the late 80s, Linda Ronstadt released her album Canciones de mi Padre, Songs of My Father, a collection of mariachi songs that highlights her family's heritage and, but more importantly, brings to U.S. households and into our lives the music of mariachi. Many new fans of mariachi were born from this cultural movement at this moment in time. Still today, this album, over 30 years later, remains the best-selling foreign language album ever sold in the United States. So as we enter the 1990s, mariachi music is on the map. And as they say, timing is everything. So in 1991, on the heels of this explosion of interest, and 1 year after their fateful meeting at Garcia's, Dr. Rupert Trujillo and Roberta Frescas launched Mariachi Spectacular de Albuquerque. Their first year, they started with a bang, offering music conference classes, concerts, and a mariachi mass. The people responded. Students, concertgoers, mariachi enthusiasts, they all came. Mariachi Spectacular was to become a great success. Now, I don't mean to gloss over the hard work and stressful times that were involved in putting this together, because there were a lot of sacrifices too. The path was not simple, as is always the case when you're building something from scratch. The journey was tough, but great effort by many people over a long period of time helped it reach its success, the kind of thing that we see today. From its beginnings, it followed some fundamental rules that we still follow today. These are the hallmarks of why Albuquerque's Mariachi Spectacular stands atop the competitive music and educational service space. Number one, with regard to the concerts, always remain a purist. No mariachi hip-hop here. No, there isn't going to be any mariachi hard rock either. The recipe was to stay true to the traditional form of the music. Be a purist. Number two, with regard to the classroom, find master teachers, maestros, wherever they are, and pay to bring them here to Albuquerque, because the highest quality teachers in our classes are going to make the difference in the highest quality of education that we can offer. And we had learned that there's a bit of a confusion sometimes about what a performer is and what a teacher is. We've seen other conferences, because of financial constraints, hire a group to perform a concert, and then they make the members of the group the maestros as well. But we didn't want to do that, because we knew that teachers don't always make good performers, but performers don't always make good teachers either. So we tried to treat those two things separately, respectfully, in their own space, and seek out the best maestros that we can on the basis of their ability to teach. Number three, particularly when it comes to the music conference, we strive to keep the price down. We need to keep this accessible for you and affordable for you. The mission of Mariachi Spectacular is to educate the youth and our communities across the country. But it has to be financially accessible to do that. So gratefully here in Albuquerque, we have a lot of support, local government, our community, private sponsors, and even the concert. These are all ways in which we subsidize the high-quality music education that you get. One thing supports the other. And one other very important factor was necessary from the inception, from the beginning: volunteers. Berta likes to call them her angels, but these people have volunteered countless hours of time without pay for over 30 years. Remarkable that she could build a business on the basis of volunteers. I've never seen anything like that. Their passion and love for the music, and their love for Norberta, has resulted in a volunteer commitment of the ages, for the ages. We owe a great debt of gratitude to this special group of people who, particularly in the early years, were greatly responsible for the sustainability of the program. Now today, Mariachi Spectacular lives on and is managed by the Atrisco companies within our nonprofit social enterprise. This assures Mariachi Spectacular security and safety, and it gives it a future. So it is not in any way in jeopardy the way it may have been in its early years as it was building. It's our intention to ensure a succession plan for Mariachi Spectacular. It's a cultural gem for our community and for our country. And as far as Noberta Fresquez, well, she's retired now, but her cultural and educational mark is undeniable. Noberta has left her mark on our city, our state, and honestly, people throughout our country and Mexico who have been a part of the musical learning, part of the performances, who were just enjoying it from a fan's point of view. Thousands of people have experienced mariachi music and continue to do so because of this one remarkable woman, a woman who was able in her life to bring together her love for music and her love for education. A spectacular life. As a matter of fact, in all the things that Noberta did, all the people that she met and worked with in her storied career, if you were to ask her what was the most rewarding part of all of it, she will without hesitation tell you she loved educating and helping develop the character of our youth through the music. Her greatest reward was impacting the kids, making a positive contribution to their development as they made their way towards adulthood. She loved that aspect of the work most, and the kids both admired her and loved her too. Now, I want to close by sharing with you a tribute paid to her during a COVID period concert where we changed our format and brought in all-star mariachi members, an ensemble, who were they were going to be, and they are, the next generation of maestros for us, musicians who were all at one point young students in our conferences in the early days. But today, as adults, these individuals are professional musicians and master instructors in Mariachi Spectacular. Take a moment to listen.
Le debemos mucho a ella, por eso estamos aquí hoy. Ahí te va tu canción, Hermoso Cariño.
Hermoso cariño, que Dios me ha mandado, va a ser destinado no más para mí. Precioso regalo, del cielo ha llegado y que me ha colmado de dicha y amor. Hermoso cariño, estoy como un niño con nuevo juguete, contento y feliz. No puedo evitarlo y quiero gritarlo. Hermoso cariño que Dios ha mandado no más para mí. Eso me lo mariachi. Fuerte el aplauso para...
Thank you guys for your attention today. Have a good afternoon.